Fresh off his disastrous fifth-place finish in the New Hampshire primary, former Vice President Joe Biden took aim Sunday at the current frontrunner in the Democratic presidential primary, saying Senator Bernie Sanders (IVT) has never gotten anything done on health care.
During an interview with Meet the Press anchor Chuck Todd, Biden pushed back on what he felt were misrepresentations of his policy positions and views.
"The ideas I have, Chuck, are big and bold," Biden declared. "I mean this idea that I'm not the progressive in the race. I mean, my lord, if I get elected President of the United States with my position on health care, my position on global warming, my position on foreign policy, my position on the middle class, this will go down as one of the most progressive administrations in American history."
Biden then turned his attention on Medicare for All, which Sanders is advocating for, calling it an almost fanciful policy that would cost taxpayers tens of trillions of dollars.
"Even Bernie is now saying how much is it going to cost?" Biden exclaimed. "Who knows, we'll find out." I think that's the phrase he used. "Well, we don't know. Part of being president is not just the idea you have, can you get it done? Have you ever done anything big? Have you ever been able to put together coalitions that bring along Republicans and all the Democrats to get things done? And the idea, I mean, it's almost fanciful sometimes."
Todd, meanwhile, suggested this was Bernie's strength, that voters know where he stands and who he is.
"And he's never gotten anything done," the ex-VP interjected.
"No, I get it," the NBC News host noted.
"He's been talking about health care, Medicare for all, universal health care for 35 years, Biden continued. "Nothing has happened. I helped get past Obamacare. I helped move it forward. I got the votes. I'm in a position where I take something I promise you all get done." He
went on to further blast Sanders' health care proposal, saying it would require Americans to give up their private insurance while also making sure to name-check the Culinary Workers Union in Nevada, who recently criticized Sanders' platform.
Todd would later ask Biden about Sanders' supporters attacking culinary union members over their criticism of the Vermont senator's policies, wondering aloud who was responsible for those supporters' actions.
"Look, he may not be responsible for it, but he has some accountability," Biden stated. "You know me well enough to know that if any of my supporters did that, I'd disown them. Flat disown them."
The former vice president also asserted that Sanders wasn't doing enough to condemn the attacks on the union leaders, adding, "So far, I don't think it's sufficient just to say I disassociate myself."
Sanders has accused Biden of distorting his Medicare for All plan and ignoring that even with Obamacare, too many Americans can't afford health care because of high premiums and deductibles.
As President Donald Trump moves to purge his administration of perceived disloyalty, one of his top deputies is also doggedly working to expose perhaps the most famous dissident in its ranks.
Officially, assistant to the president Peter Navarro is Trump's point man on trade policy. But Navarro has also taken it upon himself in recent weeks to uncover the identity of the person known simply as Anonymous, the senior Trump administration official who has railed against the president in the New York Times opinion pages and, most recently, in a best-selling book titled A Warning, and whose actual identity has so far confounded White House leak hunters.
Since at least the time of the impeachment process against Trump, Navarro, whom the president affectionately calls "My Peter," began conducting his own private investigation into the identity of Anonymous, according to 3 sources with knowledge of Navarro's efforts. One of those sources described Navarro's investigative efforts as partially an in-depth analysis of the language and phrases used in Anonymous' book and other public writings. The process, as described to the Daily Beast, mimics forensic linguistic profiling, and the goal is to cross-reference Navarro's profile with a list of potential suspects. 2 other people familiar with Navarro's efforts said he had zeroed in on at least one likely suspect and that he has compiled his findings in a written report that he's shared with White House counsel Pat Cipollone, who is leading official internal efforts to unearth Anonymous' identity. One of the sources who spoke with the Daily Beast specifically asked to be identified in this story as a senior administration official because that is how Anonymous is self-described in the famous op-ed and book. Navarro declined to comment when reached by the Daily Beast on Sunday. A White House spokesman did not provide comment by press time. But Navarro, it should be noted, is not working alone. Instead, his efforts are part of a multi-pronged effort inside the administration to figure out who, exactly, Anonymous is. In addition to work by the Council's office and Navarro, a handful of staffers on the National Security Council have taken it upon themselves to conduct their own unofficial probe, one source said.
Despite those efforts, Anonymous has vexed and fascinated political and media figures since writing a New York Times column in September 2018 describing himself or herself as part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. In November 2019, the person released a warning, which lambasted Trump for his alleged erratic, reckless, and ignorant behavior and actions in office. The book claimed that numerous other administration officials share Anonymous' disdain for the president, and frequently work to subvert his agenda.
Trump himself has taken notice, and on many occasions has privately asked senior aides about efforts to unmask Anonymous, according to those close to the president. Both he and his allies have taken Anonymous' presence as confirmation of the existence of a deep state cabal operating within the federal government to thwart the president's efforts to disrupt the status quo in Washington.
That view has inspired the West Wing's efforts this month to purge the White House of perceived subversives, such as Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who testified to Congress about Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president. Vindman is not suspected of being anonymous, but was removed from his NSC post last week in retaliation for his legally mandatory testimony before a House panel investigating conduct that led to the president's impeachment.
It's not clear whether Anonymous actually remains in an administration post, or has moved on. Reporting since his or her Times column has floated a variety of potential culprits. Every administration official who's been asked has denied being anonymous. But then that's what Anonymous said he or she would do.
For now, the person wrote in a warning, "If asked, I will strenuously deny I am the author of this book, including when the president demands we each disavow it."